The Four-Leaf Clover podcast is sponsored by Planet Celtic.
Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our usual Wednesday night Four-Leaf Clover podcast. It's our own aftermath and dissection of the Glasgow derby this evening. I got word today that for all you bicycle enthusiasts, that the stadium tours at Ibrox from May onwards will still be showing Lance Armstrong's Racer for all of you that have yet to see it in that trophy room of theirs. I've also been told that at Celtic Park come May, we'll still be showing the usual 3 domestic trophies as ever in ours. Now, something happened at the weekend, something that doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it upsets me a little. I missed the last 2 podcasts, so thank you to Andy and the rest of the lads for stepping up as ever. It was also a wee game that we had as well. We'll get into it all. But first, let's go around the table. In fact, sorry, just before we do, I was up the coast at the weekend in Marbella, or Marbella as we call it over here, and I bumped into one of my friends again from sunny Saltcoats. So I just want to give him a wee shout out because he is watching this evening. I know a few of you will know him. Stevie Fitzpatrick from Saltcoats. There he is, sporting my first book, The Bonnet, which is available on Amazon for all you lovely people that are looking for books. So let's get round the table. Paddy, how have you been, mate, since the weekend?
All good here, Scotty. Aye, there's nothing major. Disappointment on Sunday with the performance, and I suppose disappointed with the result. But you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's easy to make a knee-jerk reaction to what happened. But listen, you only have to look at the league table. With the League Cup already in the bag, a semi-final coming up against St Johnstone, so there's a fair chance that we're going to be looking at least a good run at a treble again this year. So listen, I haven't gone too far overboard. Obviously, you're disappointed on the day of the game. You're disappointed coming back, you know. But in the cold light of day, that's all it is. You know, for us, it's one defeat. For them, that's their cup final. That's their one game of the season that they can crow about. But listen, we will have the month of April and the month of May, where it will be non-stop celebrating, and hopefully ending up at Hampden with another treble at the end of the season. So I will take that all day long.
Yeah, and Andy, I did join you on the post-match show just to show you we're still having a party regardless. You know, I think we spoke about it. I think we were 11 points clear in January. We were 16 going into the game. It's now 13, so it just shows how far ahead we actually are in this league title race. But how has your couple of days been? And thank you so much for doing the post-match all on your own, mate. You were fantastic. I watched it back, so well done for that as well, mate.
Thanks goes to the commenters and the viewers that helped us through that, because as you know yourself, it's not easy doing a post-match yourself, but especially after that game and especially after a defeat. So just a big thanks to everybody that helped us there. So I've been busy as usual, driving about. I just want to give a shout out to somebody I met this morning, Charlie. I was down in Suffolk picking a load up, and I've got a 4-leaf clover white in my cab, and he says, "Can I get a picture of your 4-leaf clover?" And I says to him, "It's because I did the 4-leaf clover podcast." He's like, "Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I love Celtic in Ireland," and his favourite player of all times, Nakamura. He says, so he showed him on YouTube, he subscribed, and he says, "I'll watch you tonight." I says, "Well, I'll give you a wee shout out." So nice to meet you, Charlie. All the best, mate.
All the best, Charlie. All the best, sir. So, lads, let's just get into it, and let's call it as it is, as we always do. So, Paddy, 2 massive shocks in the starting lineup that we noticed was Nawrocki, obviously starting, but the big miss of our captain, our leader, my captain and your captain, Callum McGregor, mate. Now, that would have gave them a massive shot in the arm straight away. I think we were the only podcast that called it on the Wednesday before the game. we said that we thought he might be injured. He did get substituted a couple of games beforehand. Something's come out the club today that there's been leaks again of the first team squad, and that would have gave Rangers a shot in the arm that they needed, and that's why they started the way they started in the game. But if we can see it before, and then other fan media can see it, then I'm sure it doesn't take the brains of an archbishop to work out that he is not going to make the game or be not at 100% anyway. What did you make of that starting lineup, mate? I think the big shock for me as well was that bench. I was not impressed with the bench at all. And I think when you see that we have 3 or 4 injuries, which we did have, how short we really are.
Yep, I just want to take you back to Sunday mid-morning, Scotty. We were in the bus on the way up, so we found out just through social media the way everybody else did. And to say that the bus, to a man, was absolutely gobsmacked when we saw the team. We were kind of prepared for the fact that Callum might not make it. I was actually surprised because I just thought Andy and me talked about it on Friday night that I think it'll take a lot for him to miss this fixture. So it must have been something that he was struggling with when he couldn't even get a place on the bench. But the one for us completely out of the blue from left field was Trusty. Nobody expected or saw that one coming, especially given the fact that Scales had already been ruled out. So for us to see Nawrocki on the team lineup, it was first of all, we thought it might be a wind-up, but it turned out to be true. But listen, it is what it is. There's no question in my mind that stung the supporters. It's probably stung Brendan himself. I think Austin Trusty's missus went into labour or something, and he was given permission to leave the squad, which is probably fair enough.
As Roy Keane would say, he's not having a baby, is he?
Well, that's maybe another argument for another day. Listen, the big man, he's having his family and stuff. So, but just on the morning of such an important game, or the eve of such an important game, given the fact that we were already short in that area. But listen, it is what it is. We've said it all season long that these guys that are on the periphery, there are 1 or 2 of them in that boat, and Nawrocki falls into that category. So we were very quickly of the opinion that this might be a chance for him to prove himself. He's going to be given a chance to make a name for himself. But to say that we were shocked at the team line was an understatement. And as you rightly point out, Scotty, I'm sure word quickly spread to the other camp. And I think that's why you saw them approaching the game from the very first whistle the way they did. Get the ball into the Celtic half and let's pen them in there and see how they cope. So it was quite a shock. And the one thing I will say about Callum is, he divides opinion. I think he's a fantastic captain. He's a fantastic player. And I think you saw on Sunday, we'll get into it as we go, I think you saw on Sunday the importance of him when he's not there, especially in this fixture. So for us, it was a shock because, we were on our way. We were just on our way into Glasgow at the time on the bus. And that's when we found out. So for us, it was quite a shock. It was quite something to take in. And as you say, that your immediate thought then looks at what have we got on the bench then? If something goes wrong with somebody else, so, and when you look at that, the bench, so again, it's something that we have talked about, Scotty, week in, week out on the podcast, where we are as a squad. We have a decent squad when everybody's fit, but Sunday showed that if you get a couple of injuries at the wrong time in the wrong game, you can be caught short, and that's exactly what we were. So that's something that'll need to be addressed in the summer. But it was a bit of a shock and a bit of a surprise to see it on Sunday.
Yeah, good point there from Boys on Tour. Sunday was totally unacceptable and disappointing at our last 2 derbies. We've been bullied and deserved nothing from the games. It's bang on there what you're saying, my good man. So Andy, just one thing I want to touch on just before we go back to that starting lineup is about Calmac. Now, there's two things here that Brendan Rodgers, for example, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself here, but it's something we'll talk about later on when we speak about the striker we've been left with. He knew for months that Kyogo was leaving the club. He had time to replace him. He didn't do it. Now, Callum McGregor has clearly been injured the past 2 games where he's took him off. Hatati's been having shockers, been taking Calmac off, so we knew something was up with him. Why did he play him in the 2 games and no wrap him in cotton wool for this game? It's some of the stuff that he's doing, mate, baffles me.
That's why I didn't believe he was injured. I thought he was just kind of managing him for this game. Again, if he was injured, why did he play in the 2 games? If Brendan's taking this tie really seriously and seen it as a way of getting revenge back for the defeat at Snake Mountain, then the most inspirational guy on the park is your captain. And whether you think he's been good or indifferent or whatever, whether you think he's been anonymous, I think he's absolutely instrumental, especially at home, with the whole home fans behind you. Players are looking for a wee bit of guidance, and they look to him because really there's nobody else on the park. CCV's a deputy captain. He's not a much of a talker, I would say. So you know, he's a big miss. It really, that's why I didn't think he was injured when he continued playing him. All right, he was taking him off, but why play him? It just didn't make sense to me. It's a very strange decision to make.
It's baffling, mate. And I just have a quick one on that bench, Andy. You know, we had Trusty, Scales, Kilmac, and Bernardo, who we would say are pretty much first team players, out injured. Look at the rest of that bench, mate. When I seen that bench, I was shocked and stunned as well on Sunday. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You know, to turn. Normally, we've seen it in recent games that the bench has turned our games around, and that's what I was hoping for on Sunday. You know, with the extra time and the penalties on Thursday night for them, that would bring on, you know, guys, and it would turn the game. But there was nobody to bring on.
Well, Taylor was on the bench. Could have brought him on. The thing you're getting with Taylor is he used to be a midfielder. He's always getting in that inverted role. So there was an opportunity there to kind of change it up a wee bit. Even if you kept Slip where he was, fire Taylor into midfield. Do something. Do change something because it obviously wasn't working. And the thing was, especially the start of that game, right? But overall, I think we weren't outplayed in that game. We were outfought. So, you know, we came up against a brick wall and we didn't know. We were just banging the ball against a brick wall. And when we eventually gave up, and guys like AJ are plenty of space in front of them, look scared to take 2 steps forward. They're just looking to pass it back again. A severe lack of bravery in that team on Sunday. Real, and you can look through the whole team. The only player I gave pass marks to was Big Rocky. And he's a guy you're probably looking at on that team sheet before the game started going, oh no. Yeah. No disrespect to him, but he's not played any football and he's gone into a massive game like us. And he was a shining light. He was, not that he was a world superstar, but that's how bad we were that he was the best player. So I think you look at the bench and you think, where's the reinforcements? You've got Ida, who is on and off. You know, he's hot and cold. You don't know what you're going to get with him. And when he did come on, he absolutely done nothing to change the game. To be fair, we never tried to play in a different way to accommodate him in the game. So, you know, it was on a hiding to nothing. But I think, obviously, you look at the bench, we know the position we're in. We didn't do the right business in January. Didn't bring in another striker, we were all calling for. And you're looking at a guy that's cost us £9 million, and you're putting a winger on centre forward because he's more trusted than the guy that you've spent £9 million on. I think a lot of it we had him is consistency. But I don't think he's that type of player. He's not the type of player to go even a full half season, like absolutely banging him in. You're going to get maybe 4 or 5 games and then it's going to dry off for about 4 or 5 games. And that's the way it's going to be. Whereas Dyson, you know, he's probably scoring just about every game. So you're going to go with a consistency. I think the only surprise in that team was Rocky, and we found out late why Trusty actually had an injury. But other than that, although you're saying the bench is weak, but if you look at that team, you go, they should be able to beat Rangers at home. But there's, you know, so there shouldn't be any real concern there.
Aye, definitely, mate. Right, so let's get into it then, Paddy. Let's talk about the first half. Now, I said, there's rumours that they seen that team sheet at 9 o'clock in the morning, and this is what's came out. Apparently, somebody's been leaking the team sheets yet again. It happened under Neil Lennon's reign at Celtic all the time. So apparently, it's been happening again. So they've got a massive shot in the arm. They've managed to work out, get into that Rocky straight away. That's what they've probably thought. It turned out he wasn't the one that we had to worry about. Carter-Vickers, Schmeichel put nerves through the whole team for me on Sunday. Let's talk about that first half, mate. A terrible, terrible, terrible start in the first few minutes.
It was, Scott, and it was just basic. It was basic stuff. It wasn't any, I've read some rubbish about this tactical masterclass and stuff that got there from Barry Ferguson, but that's just garbage. There was no tactical masterclass involved. The Rangers tactic was clear from the very first whistle. Get the ball into the Celtic half, get it down into the corners, and let's pen them in and let's see if we can press them high. And for some unknown reason, I still can't quite work it out. We sort of fell into the trap, and we just looked so nervous. And one of the viewers there has just actually made a comment to say, we looked like a team that had never played together before. It was just unbelievable. Some of the simple, basic 3-yard passes, 4-yard passes, from one to another just seemed to be missing, and everything seemed to be breaking down. We just seemed to give the ball away, and we had the ball, and we had, I wouldn't say comfortable possession, but we had the possession of the ball a couple of occasions to get the ball out of that corner and get it up the field and get it into the Rangers half. But we seemed to dither on the ball, and we give away throw-ins, and we were allowing ourselves to be closed down. And that's exactly where the concession of the corner came from. From failing to get the ball up the park, giving it away in the middle of the field, allowing Rangers to come in and attack you again. And out of that, they concede a corner. We concede a corner kick. And from that, then they get the goal. Now, the goal itself is a nothing goal. It's just a ball into the box, half decent delivery. Raskin gets his head to the ball. It can go anywhere. It shoots across and goes right into the net off the post. But again, very, very poor. The ball could have been cut off at the near post. It could and should have been cut off at the near post. Failing that, some of the two centre halves should have been picking that up once it came in that far. But the thing that we were so poor at in the first half, we were second to the ball all over the field. Every department, we just seemed to be second to the ball. Loose ball on the edge of the box, loose ball in the centre circle. It seemed to be a Rangers player first to the ball, and we just seemed to have that lack of intensity. We did not match them, and as Andy said, we were just outfought, plain and simple. Sometimes these fixtures are wonderful when you play lovely football and you score goals and you're leading 3-0 at half time, but there are other times where you have to just roll the sleeves up and get dug in and try and match the opposition. And that for me was the most disappointing thing. The lack of hunger and the lack of desire from our players, especially in the first half an hour, 40 minutes, was just unbelievable. We couldn't believe what we were watching. You're watching guys that have been so good on this run that we've been on. Alistair Johnson it just looked like a different player. Couldn't seem to pass the ball 5 yards down the wing to Nicholas Kuhn. Kuhn himself just didn't seem to, he just seemed to lack that whole zip and the fire that he's played with this season. And we were just all over the place, absolutely all over the place. It was just it was very similar to the way we played at Ibrox at New Year. You were just watching the same thing again. Basic mistakes, failing to do the basics, failing to match the work rate of the Rangers players. Take nothing away from them. They came with a game plan. They stuck to it, and they absolutely worked their socks off, and they closed us down. And we just didn't seem to have the ability or the confidence to come out with the ball. As Andy said earlier, there was a few times, both left and right. Jeffrey Schlupp was the same. There were times where all he needed to do was take an extra touch, and instead of going back or sideways, just take a step forward and break through the press. And there was men, Engels was free, Hatate was free, but we just didn't do it. We kept allowing the ball to be dominated in our own half of the field. And there was far too much going on around the edge of the box. The second goal wasn't a surprise either. The second Rangers goal was not a surprise to any of us. It just summed up how we had played in the first half. There was only a couple of players who came out with any credit at all. I thought in the first half, the only two to come out with any sort of credit were Maida and Big Nawrocki. Indeed, if it hadn't been for Nawrocki, a couple of times we could have been further behind. I just don't understand it, Scott. I still can't been able to understand why experienced players who've done the business all season long, both at home and in Europe and in the cup competitions, like Kasper Schmeichel, seemed to be a bag of nerves. I don't know what had come over him, but his kicking, his decision making, his judgment just seemed to be completely away. And it really was strange. But listen, at half time, we had absolutely no complaints. Not amongst the guys I was sitting with. Anyway, we couldn't have had any complaints, and not for the first time this season. We said that Brendan is going to have a stern word with him at half time, and that's unfortunately become a theme with us this season.
Yeah, it's happened quite a few times now. You're bang on with that, Paddy. Andy, we just looked very, very nervous, and I think that starts with the goalkeeper. He didn't have his best game, and we can't knock him too much, obviously, but we call it as it is on this podcast, as everybody knows. If players need to be praised, we'll praise them, and if they need to be called up, pulled up, whatever, then we'll do it as well. That's what we're here today, to have a discussion about it. We might be right, we might be wrong, but it's just our opinion. Andy, the team looked nervous. They've worked out how to play against us, and they've done it in the last 3 games they've played against us. It's for having a guy who's on £3 million a year. How's he not worked out how to change his tactics against this press and this aggression by now?
I don't know. I've not got an answer. Brendan certainly doesn't have an answer at this stage. He's certainly going to change something. There's 2 ways to look at this here, and you can take this game in isolation alone as one game. You're obviously going to look at the 2 previously. The one we won the cup, we won it in penalties. But again, they played the same way against us. The last one at Snake Mountain, we actually didn't even lay a glove on them. So at least in this game, we actually looked as if we could go in and win the game in the second half. So when they scored in the 87th minute, what is it? 89th, 87th minute, so pretty late on, we did look in the ascendancy at that point. You've got guys like Schmeichel probably playing their worst game for us. Normally his distribution is very good. He's very comfortable with his feet and calm, and he just didn't look at. But we kept passing the ball to him when he's having a stinker. That didn't help. So guys like AJ, and I understand, you've got AJ, it's not having a particularly good game, and Kuhn either. So you've got 2 guys down the one side having an absolute stinker. One doesn't want to pass it, and one doesn't want to receive it. So where's he going to go? He's going to go and turn back and get to Carter-Vickers. And if there's no out ball for Carter-Vickers, he's not going to ping a big diagonal pass down the park. He's looking for somebody that's a better football player than him. They're getting stifled in the midfield. They're no moving about, trying to receive the ball, making space. Because all they're doing is putting a player between the player with the ball and the player that's trying to receive it. That's all they're doing. So we've got to make a movement to make space. It's up to us to do that. They play very, they're trying to make out as if Barry's a tactical genius. It's very basic stuff, football. It's not too complicated, to be honest with you. All right, none of these are football managers or, elite football managers, but get the basics right. We couldn't even get that right. The whole team was off, just really lacking any belief. We didn't have any belief in anything we were doing. So if we were looking for a pass and we actually tried to pass it, it wasn't reaching the player. Or if it was reaching the player, it was fired to them like a fucking rocket. Do you know that way? It's like, I need to make sure the ball gets to him, so I'm going to fucking ping it like a rocket. And by the time it gets to him, we can't control it. It's bouncing off his shins, it's bouncing off his feet. Real lack of composure. And I think that was quite evident on Sunday. Something I'm not used to seeing with Celtic, but particularly recently in these ties against them, it has been quite evident. It's because we're getting played the same way and we are reacting the same way. We basically doing nothing. So Brendan is going to get back to the drawing board. Something's got to change. He can't just keep going down the same tactical route. He's got to. We spoke about, seeing you're talking about performances. All right, we've been getting the results recently, right? But see, since that Bayern game, I think we have just fell off a fucking cuff when it comes to performance-wise. I really do. You can say we've scored 4 goals here and 5 goals here, but when you actually take a step back and look at it, that's where almost as if they've hit their peak and then they've just went, well, the Champions League's early and the league's done. I mean, we talk about complacency going into the game at Snake Mountain. The last time we were 13 points ahead. We were even further ahead in this game. And the same things happened. So maybe we're too comfortable. Maybe there's too much of a gap where we think we don't really need to do anything, so the league's done.
No, again, mate, an absolutely great point. You're bang on. So moving on to the second half then, Paddy. As you mentioned, they obviously did get that rocket up their arse. We came out firing on all cylinders and we looked at a totally different team. He made the tactical changes that he could have made in the first half, but decided to wait again until we were 2-0 down and then changed it up, and it certainly worked. We got back into the game virtually straight away, mate, and got back to 2 each and then lost that goal towards the end. So just give us your second half breakdown, Paddy.
The second half was much better, Scott, and we looked much more like ourselves. You can see that Brendan has obviously, he's obviously tweaked it at half time, and maybe he's just told a few home truths as well. That I think somebody said today that it was just he told them it wasn't good enough, simple as that, and that's exactly bang on. It was well below the standard that required to win any game, but especially this fixture. So it was good to see them coming out. They came out with a lot more desire and a lot more zip about her. We got Hatate on the ball, we got Engels on the ball. We got our fullbacks pushed quite high up for the first time in the game. And we thoroughly deserved to get back into the game at 2-1 and then at 2 each. Brilliant work from Hatate. Unbelievable cross from Jota. And Dyson Maida at the back post with no real right to win that ball. Gets up there among the big men and bullets a header in to get us back into the game at 2-1. 48, 49 minutes. Just exactly what we were saying at half time. If we can get the next goal and get an early one, we're right back in this. And that's exactly what happened. Rangers tried to regain their composure, but again, we were all over them at this stage. We were pressing down both sides. We were having plenty of the ball. Still the odd wee mistake here and there, and we had to be careful of them on the break. But certainly the way the game, as we headed to the last sort of 15, 20 minutes, from my vantage point, it looked to me as though Rangers were actually hanging on. They were hanging on. 2-2, Rio Hatate. Brilliant run, brilliant finish, back in business again. And again, we were all of the opinion that, listen, that we still have time to win this now. We still have time to win this here. And for me, Scotty, at that stage of the game, probably 70, 77, 79, maybe 80 minutes, you're probably thinking there is only going to be one winner here, because that's how it looked from my vantage point. That Celtic were doing all the press and all the play. Rangers had seemed to be sitting back, just taking the pressure, and just were quite happy to just lump the ball down the field. And unfortunately, for another game, with the amount of possession and the amount of good opportunities that we had in around the edge of the box, we just seem to want to score the perfect goal. Nobody seems to want to take a shot. We got players into positions late on. Hatate, Engels, there was one or two others there who had chances to shoot from the edge of the box and didn't do it. So as a result of that, then we go into the last couple of minutes, and we're basically undone by a hoof down the field. That's essentially what it was. And when you watch it over again, it's just an absolute calamity. For whatever reason, Carter-Vickers seems to duck out of the challenge of the ball coming down. It seems to throw Alistair Johnson off completely. He loses his footing. It goes to the guy Egaman. And what we said about our own game, to be fair to him, you have to give him the benefit of doubt, and you have to give him credit. When he saw the opportunity, he took a shot. He didn't try to score the perfect goal, or he didn't try to take a man on or whatever. He took a shot, and that's exactly what we said. If we had taken more shots when it was 2-2, it might have been a different game. Take nothing away from the guy. It was an unbelievable strike. No chance for Schmeichel in the goal, but an absolute sucker punch given the way that we had played. And I think it was rough on us on the grand scheme of things. I think 2-2 at that stage would probably been a fair result, because it was a game of two halves at that stage. But listen, that's what can happen. And we have said before on this podcast on a few occasions this season, the one tactic that seems to break us down more often just seems to be the old-fashioned lump down the field. We just don't seem to know how to deal with it. Cross balls into the box and stuff where we seem to be fine, but just the old-fashioned punt down the field, we seem to be at 6s and 7s, and that's exactly what it was. So listen, very, very disappointing, but take nothing away from the guy. An unbelievable finish, and really not much that Schmeichel or anybody else could do about it. But from the minute the ball was lumped down the field, we just didn't defend the thing at all. And when you watch it again, even Alistair Johnston's attempt to try and get back and close him down after he gets to his feet again was just schoolboy stuff. So just very disappointing after battling our way back and giving ourselves a real chance of winning the game.
No, bang on, mate. And Andy, second half, like we said, we wanted Brendan to make the tactical changes. He did. We came out looking a better side. Hatate started to get a grip in the game, I thought, in the second half. He tried a few shots. Butland made a few cracking saves. But as Paddy said, it's a direct ball yet again. We struggle against teams like Dundee and St Mirren who play that direct game, get the big boys up front, and that's how they do it. They just hoof it up. And we always seem to struggle against teams that just play direct against us. We didn't get outplayed. Sorry, I was going to say outmuscled. We didn't get outplayed by them. They were just very direct, and that's how they ended up winning the game, mate.
Today, but I think we have brought this up before about physicality on the team, especially midfield. We lack that, and quite a lot of if you actually look at the size of our players, a lot of them are quite slight. We've got no big units, no commanding units. Unless you look at a couple of central defenders, but overall I think we're quite a small, slight team. We rely on our football.
Just quickly on that, Andy, the day after we're linked with a 6'7" central defensive midfielder. The day after,
seen that. I seen that. Aye. But I mean, I think you don't need to be 6'7", but you need to have something about you. Now we just don't. I don't see a battler in there. I really don't, and I don't want to get down the Barry Ferguson tactics. There was no surprise how they were going to come out and play against us with that battling attitude, because look who's in charge of them. This is a one-nutter. This is a guy that stuck his toilet doors and talks to his cell, and that's the guy that's telling him to go out, and we knew it was going to be a battle. Our players obviously didn't take that on board, or Brendan didn't pass a message on, or if he did pass a message on, nobody's took any notice. Because that's, when it comes to football and actual types of football we play, we know we're a better footballing team, but that's not what they played. It was a pure battle, and they roughed us up, and we couldn't handle it. We had no answers for it, mate. And then you can look at the second half and say, at points we did look as if, especially later in the game, I think we could go on and win this. But really, did we deserve anything out of that game, considering overall the whole performance? I think we got what we deserved. Honestly, I do. And I hate saying that, especially against them, but we were awful.
I heard somebody say this, and this summed it up perfectly for me. And it was one of his old managers, so it was very, very similar. It was a Walter Smith smash and grab job. That's what it seemed like to me. They were aggressive, they were direct, and even though it looked as though one team was going to go on and win that game, the other team went on to win it, and it was a Walter Smith performance for me, just looking at it. Yeah. So moving on then, lads. That's the game covered. We spoke about Calmac. One player I want to speak about, who we did mention there a couple of times, was this boy. 20-odd minutes he's had this season, lads. Paddy, brilliant performance for the boy. And would you put him ahead of Scales now and Trusty for a game over the next few weeks? I know that there's international break, things like that, but after his performance here, would you consider him for the next fixture?
Absolutely, Scott. I thought he did very well. I don't want to go overboard, but I thought he did what he needed to do. It was bound to be a very, very difficult situation for him to be thrust in there just literally at the last minute. To find out all of a sudden that you're playing and you have had very little minutes in the legs over the last wee while, and with the movement that Rangers have up front, especially with Cherney, Dessers, and stuff like that, there where they drag you all over the place, we did fear for him, but you know, as Andy said, you know, I don't like to say that he turned out to be probably our best defender, but that's essentially how it looked. You know, the big man seemed to be holding it together. Where we thought it would be down to Carter-Vickers maybe to nurse him through the game, it seemed to be the other way around. You know, there was one or two occasions. There's one I can remember in the first half where I think it was the one where Schmeichel actually gave the ball away. He actually kicked the ball straight to Czerny when he was already like 10 or 12 yards off his goal line. If Czerny had taken one decent touch and hammered it into the empty net, we would have been further behind. But he actually tries to play football, and it's actually big Nawrocki that's there at the front post to make a very, very important block to stop a certain goal there. So I thought he did what he had to do. You know, he won his fair share of aerial duels. You know, he put the foot in here there. He seemed to be okay at moving the ball quickly out to the left, whatever, back across. So I think he can count himself very, very unlucky. He was very, very good, and you know, he turned out to be very reliable on the day. It's just unfortunate that there was too many guys around him having a complete mare. But he can certainly hold his head high with the way he played. And listen, I would have no fears about putting him in, especially at the minute if Scales is going to be out for an extended period of time, maybe with this facial knock. I think Trusty should be back again by the time we come around to Hearts. But no, it was good to see. Good to see the big guy. You know, he's gone out and proved that he can do it. You know, he can prove it. A very difficult fixture, a very difficult set of circumstances. So I was actually delighted for him, and it was just good to see that he was capable of that kind of performance.
Yeah, again, on our last podcast we were all on, Andy, on Wednesday, another player that we spoke about, another forgotten man, was Gustav Lagerbielke. Now, we know he's flying out in Holland at the minute, and we did speak about him very quickly, thinking, you know, is this a guy who could come back in? You know, a forgotten man that could do a job. And I know you mentioned Nawrocki, and look at that, just mental that he's actually in the team. And what a job he done. You know, he was the only one in the back line, completely in the back line, that got pass marks on Sunday. Mm-hmm. The rest of them were very nervous. And he stood tall and solid through the whole game when the others around about him looked nervous and very fragile. Is he a guy that you would contemplate starting against Hearts in front of Trusty if Trusty was fit?
Trusty isn't going to be fit, so he is going to be playing. By the looks of it, obviously Scales is still out. When I brought Nawrocki up, it was the fact that a lot of the players had been put out to loan and he hadn't. And I was wondering why. And I was like, is Brendan got something like planned for him? Is he just no wanting too many people going out at one time? But I know he's susceptible to injuries. You know, he's been out for quite long periods with injuries. That would be my concern. Long term with him, I think he lacks a wee bit of pace. But I can remember when he first came to the club, and I watched quite a lot of YouTube clips, and I was impressed with him. He actually, the clips that I saw, he looked to bring the ball out of defence, and he looked no bad at passing the ball out. I've got to be honest with you. So we're led to believe that he can't do that. He's not getting any pace, and his positional sense isn't the greatest. Maybe that game on Sunday suited him because it wasn't the greatest football game. It wasn't up against the greatest players. It was merely a battle. Maybe he's that type of player. Whereas you're looking for a wee bit more finesse out of Trusty, especially maybe no Scales. Maybe Scales is probably around about the same marker point as Nawrocki, but with better pace, and I think maybe better in the air. But he's going to be, look as if he's going to be the only choice we've got. So that's one thing he hasn't had, is a sustained run in the team. So we're going to find out if it was just a one-off game that he had a good performance. Maybe he looked better because the whole team was shite. Maybe that's it. But, you know, I think we'll find out. No matter what, I think and I've said it in previous pods, I'd like to see another couple of big Bobo type central defence. I'm no caring about players passing the ball perfectly. Just give it to one of the number 6 or one of the other midfielders to go and play the ball. One of the ball players, give it to them to defend first. We've been lacking that for so long, and especially when it comes to set pieces. Again, when it comes to Raskin's goal, one of the smallest guys in the park getting up to score a glancing header like that is just criminal, absolute criminal. And our whole zonal marking thing doesn't work. You know, you need to man mark in these situations, and also talking about a guy in the back post. We've never got a guy in the back post either. It was totally open. That was open. So there was only one place that was going because Schmeichel was at the other, closer to the other side. A glance and he did it's in the back end. He's nobody's marking him, and that's the only place it's going. We need to be more. We need to command our box more, defenders and keeper wise as well. I always say that when Joe Hart was a keeper. See when they come out and they get bullied with forwards or defenders coming up for corners. And I was a goalkeeper, but I wasn't any great shakes, right? But I would just take MD out to get to the ball because you're a keeper, you're going to get away with it. It's not as if you're a defender, you're going to get there's a good chance you're going to get away with it. So just command your box. We don't command our box enough, but I think time will tell when it comes to Rocky, mate. It'll be interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah. We've got over 200 watching at the minute, ladies and gentlemen. If this is your first time watching the podcast, I know we've got a few infiltrators this evening, so it's nice to see you as well in the chat. Please like, share and subscribe and comment and things like that. Get on our YouTube page, hit the subscribe button, do us a wee favour. We've had loads of new subscribers recently, so we are absolutely flying. So it would be good for you to join in with our wee community. So Paddy, talking about defenders, one guy who's regressed the past few weeks for me, quite a bit, significantly actually, who's been normally very solid for us, is big Cameron Carter-Vickers. Again, you know, he's up there with this man who we're going to move on to in a minute. The heat seems to be done a wee bit with these two guys for me. They seem to be regressing as the season's going on. What's your thoughts on the big man? Is it injuries? Is it confidence? What's going on with him, Paddy?
Do you know what, Scotty? It could be a wee bit of both with him. You know, I suppose he's had his fair share of injuries this season. So the problem was basically defenders with that when they're expected to close down and tackle and stuff like that and get involved in the physical side of the game is that they need a run of games to be totally match fit and totally sharp. And I just don't think that just over this last week or so or week or two, I don't think Cameron Carter-Vickers has been the same player. He's just not been the same, the big rock that he is usually for us. Now, don't get me wrong, he wasn't majorly bad on Sunday. There was nothing, but there's just something about him this last wee while. I don't know what, I can't really put my finger on it. Whether it's the chopping and changing and the partners beside him or whatever is unsettling the thing. 1 week he's playing with Nawrocki, then he's playing with Scales, then it's back to Trusty, and then again he's got the left back situation. 1 week it's Greg Taylor, then it's Jeffrey Sloop, so there's all kinds of permutations there that may be upsetting. But for whatever reason, Scotty, it just it's just disappointing. The big man just doesn't look himself. And as I say, we did say on Sunday that we would be hoping that he would be the one who would kind of keep an eye on Nawrocki and nurse him through the game, but it looked like the other way round on Sunday. Yeah. But listen, there's no doubt about it. The big man's a quality player. I think he'll be back. I think he'll be back to his best again. He said himself post match that it was just it was a one-off. It was a very, very poor performance from the whole team. There were very few players would get pass marks. Certainly, very few would get pass marks for the first half. One or two more might have got a wee bit of, a bit of a bye ball for the way they played in the second half. But it is what it is. But I would be fairly confident that Cameron Carter-Vickers will get back to the form that we know he can be. But it was disappointing for him on Sunday. It was strange. It's strange to see a Celtic team with Cameron Carter-Vickers in it, and you're actually sort of you're more or less criticising him. That doesn't happen very often. So listen, I have no doubt about it that he'll be back. The only thing about it is that the worrying thing about it is his injury record. And he's not getting any younger. So that's maybe something that we're going to have to look at. And we talked about Lagerbielke maybe coming back next year and give us an option. Maybe Nawrocki might be an option, but I still think we should be looking at strengthening in that area because we've shown really over the last few weeks that we are short in that area. So much so that we had to play Nawrocki on Sunday, but it's difficult. I don't like criticising Carter-Vickers because he's been such a rock for us since the day he walked through the front doors. But listen, it is what it is. We'll put it down to one match, and let's see how he gets on the rest of the season.
I just want to say what a name that is. Get a grip. I just had to pinpoint that. Sorry, mate.
I wondered what you were doing there. Aye, so moving on then, Andy, to the other one. Absolutely flying. Maybe up to about 6 weeks ago, he was on the same amount of goals and assists and stuff as Maeda. And he just seems to have dropped off a cliff, mate. He looks very unconfident. Kind of what happened with Kyogo. You know, like no celebrating. He'd done.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with him, mate?
We spoke at us a few weeks ago, and you know his body language wasn't too positive, was it? You know, although he was still kind of turning in goals now and again, his performances had dipped. He played, the whole team actually played well against Munich, and I'm going to bring this up again. That to me is a marker when a few performances have dropped off for him. I honestly don't know. I can't put my finger on it. The Jota effect. That's what.
There is rumours.
Aye, possibly. I think we actually, this got brought up when Jota signed, didn't we? As he's always going to be put out of joint. That could possibly be the case. I don't know, but it's not as if he's been taking his place or anything like that, you know, because we fired Maeda through the middle and Jota's been out on the left and Kuhn's on the right. So it's not as if they're fighting for the same position. But maybe the kind of superstar team, the fans' favourite is kind of shifted for him because he was absolutely fantastic, certainly first half of the season. But I think it is concerning that his form has dropped so much, and I think we actually spoke about it and said that as maybe his standards be so high that if he does drop off a wee bit, then it's more noticeable. But there's no rhyme or reason why his form would drop so much. Maybe a couple of bad games here and there, and then a kickstart and back into it. But he's been off it for a few weeks, maybe longer than that. And this is a guy that we were dependent on because he was always cutting inside and scoring cracking goals for that side of the park. Maeda was doing the same for the left-hand side when he was playing through there when Kyogo was here before January. Obviously, with Maeda going through the middle and Jota's come in to fill that space that Maeda was in. Maeda's been still banging the goals in. I think he had a pretty quiet game, even though he scored on Sunday, Maeda. But Kuhn was way off it, mate. I mean, he was just didn't look interested, did he? Bad body language. So I don't know what the problem is. What do you think it is?
I don't know, mate. There is rumours about the Jota thing. I know Yang's coming on to a game as well now, and I don't know. It's like I think players get too comfortable, like Greg Taylor for 2 or 3 seasons.
Would you start Yang now instead of Kuhn?
Mate, I don't see why not. You know, I mean, but it's one of them that I want to talk about now, moving forward, is another guy that, you know, he can come off the bench, have an absolute belter, and then you start him and you get nothing out of him. You know, I mean, that's what's happening with Yang. If you look at the Hibs game, for example, you know, he brought in Taylor, he brought in Ida, and he brought in young, what was his name? McCowan. And he hauled the 3 of them off at half time.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like they're coming in and doing that impact job off the bench. I think you'd get the same out of Kuhn. If you put Kuhn on the bench, mate, and brought him on for the last 20 minutes, I think he'd be an absolute revelation. Yeah. You know, if he came off the bench for 20 minutes. So it's a difficult one. Just don't know what's going on with the guy, mate. It's just, for me, his body language is completely all wrong. And look, might just be tired and need the break, you know, that all the players are going to get now. So let's hope he comes back. But I just wanted to touch on Adam Ida quickly as well, lads, before we sort of move on. Very inconsistent, Paddy. I know you've been very harsh on your countrymen recently, when you had Packy Bonner down in number 5 and you had Anton Rogan down in number 5. Choose your boys carefully. So choose Adam Ida very carefully when you get into him here as well. But Neil Lennon touching it after the game, mate. Very inconsistent. You're getting one good performance out of 5. You know, brilliant against Aston Villa, gets 8 goals, and then just nothing. For £9 million, we expect to see better.
It's just been unfortunate for him, Scotty. It's just, you know, even Sunday was a very difficult game for him to come in, you know, especially with the pace of the game at that stage. And it is, you can understand that. It's hard sometimes to get to the pace of the game as a substitute. You're coming on cold, and, you know, but do you know what? It's just that there's so many parts to his game that, you know, that he falls down, and, you know, just the basic ability to control the ball, hold the ball up, you know, take a touch, lay it off to somebody, find one of your own players, you know, just the simple things in the game, you know, but it just seems to be the slightest pressure on his back from anybody, and he coughs up the possession to the nearest opposition player, and, you know, that's not good enough. And, like, you know, I don't like using the fee, but, you know, for as you say, for £9 million, you'd be expecting a far better return than what we're seeing at the minute. You know, if you can contrast and compare Giakoumakis when he first came into the team, very similar to Ida. He was only getting a game here and there because of the form of Kyogo, but you never ever looked at Giakoumakis and thought the things that you're thinking about Ida now. You could see there's a player there, and this guy's going to offer us a threat here, you know. And this time last year, if you go back to this time last year in the season after Christmas, that was when Ida came alive last year. You know, he played his best football. He scored some brilliant goals. He was involved in setting goals up for other people. You know, there is an argument that we certainly wouldn't have won the double had it not been for him last season. So it is a tough one. But listen, you know, it's in his situation, Scotty, it's about just getting your head down and working hard. He has to just get the head down and keep working hard. Work on the side of his game that the weaknesses that I see so far. You know, he definitely can be far more of a threat in the box. He can certainly work to tidy up his hold up play and his link up play. You know, he just needs to work on stuff like that. But, you know, again, similar to Carter-Vickers, it's maybe a confidence thing with him. You know, it might be just confidence. You know, he's not getting the run of games there. So when he's coming into the game, then he knows himself. He's trying hard to make an impression. He's really trying hard. And sometimes when you do that, you know, you try too hard, and then you end up making it worse. So listen, I still think he's a quality player, but, you know, he definitely needs to do more at the minute, especially when we're throwing him on when we're a goal down or we're 2 goals down. If he's coming on, he needs to try and make an impact.
Yeah, he certainly does. So let's move on then quickly then, lads. Still got quite a bit to talk about. So let's just have a look at the SPFL results over the weekend. So Hearts beat Ross County 2-0. Their good form continues. Hibs got a good point away to Kilmarnock. Motherwell drew 2 each with St Mirren. St Johnstone and the Aberdeen that have just fell off a cliff have finished 0-0. Brilliant result for Dundee up at across the road at Dundee United at Tannadice. And then the result that will not be spoke about anymore down the bottom. Let's just call that one a day. So let's just have a wee look at the SPFL table then after this round of fixtures. Everybody's on 30 games, ladies and gentlemen, and the champions are 13 points clear now at the top of the table. We spoke about it many times before. Just look at the rest of the league. It's very, very tight from the top 6. Well, not from the top 6, from the top 10 up to the top 3. It's very, very tight. So expect a lot of changes there. And St Johnstone look like they are going to go down. So let's move on to the 2 massive talking points that didn't happen on the pitch then, ladies and gentlemen. And the first one is Watergate. I'll come to you first, Andy. Now, I'm just the presenter, so don't shoot me here. I'm just going to come up with a few points. You can agree, disagree, all the rest of it, do what you like. Is it double standards from Celtic fans wanting Tierney punished for what he done? We look at Lee Griffiths tying the scarves to the posts at Ibrox. We can look at Neil Lennon spitting on the scarf at Ibrox. We can look at Lustig with the Polish hat, so on and so forth. But what Cherny did was he was very close to inciting a riot himself by his behaviour and what he done. How do you see it? Should he just get a rap in the knuckles? Should he get match suspensions? Should he just get a fine from the club? Police investigations, everything. What do you make it, mate?
Right, they're saying it's only water, but by the by, no matter what it is, if it was the other way about, if the dugouts were the other way about and he's wanted to run towards where that goal was, he's got to go past the Celtic dugout and they done that to the dugout, which ain't what happened, you know. So these are paying customers that are sitting there getting scooshed in the face off a professional football player, deliberately done it. It could have caused a riot. I thought it was an absolute disgrace. And you're talking about Lee Griffiths. Lee Griffiths tied a scarf to a post. Neil Lennon spat on a scarf. Lustig took a police's hat and put it on and gave him it back. You know, if you'd walked outside the stadium or even inside the stadium and scooshed a steward or a police with a water bottle, you'd be getting to jail because they'd class that as assault. And people might say, "Oh, you're being petty and all that," but let's look at the facts. It's a professional football player acting like an absolute thug and an idiot. I hope he does get punished. People might say, "Oh, it's only a bit of fun and whatever." It's very disrespectful, to paying customers who are sitting there watching a football game, getting scooshed in the face with whatever it is. And talking about the COVID period and all that, he's sitting drinking out of a bottle and he's scoosing it out people's faces. Nah, it's out of order for me. He should be punished. He's talking about an 8-game ban. Is that correct?
This is what I'm saying. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if it's just going to be a fine or whatever. My point to it, Paddy, is inciting fans. Now, Lee Griffiths knew what he was doing as well. I know that what Andy's saying, but Lee Griffiths knew what he was doing when he done that. Same way wiping his nose on the corner flag and that. I think he done it in Lingfield as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
After getting filled with a bucket bottle.
Aye, but this is what I'm saying.
Bucket bottles getting flung at him. Aye.
They know what they're doing, and they should be professional football players. And it was stupid for all of them. What I'm saying, the Lustig one with the police hat isn't anything really. You know, that's just a bit of fun, whatever. But as Andy said, as professional football players, they should not be doing that. Now, I know for a fact that all the teams get security briefings before the games, and they get told, do not do anything to incite the crowd.
Yeah.
You know, the police, they go in and speak to the teams about this, and they still done it. So, what do you think? Where did the governing body go for here? Where did the Rangers go for here? Where did Celtic go for here? You know, is it assault? Is it a bit of fun? Is it worse than that? What is it?
I think you have to look at it in the context of this fixture, Scotty. You know, I'm not suggesting for 1 second that it's okay to do that to somebody else other than the away support that were in the stadium on Sunday or the home support. I'm not suggesting that for 1 second. But this fixture, with the baggage that it comes with and all the history of, you know, trouble and all the rest of it, you know, and as you say, the players will have had stern warnings from both the police, the match commander, and that before the game. You know, they're actually even told now to be careful where they go to celebrate a goal, because obviously they don't want to run the risk of maybe starting trouble or whatever. Because the police just want a quiet day. They want the game over and done with as minimal disruption and trouble. But for me, that was just idiotic. You know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a great offence by any manner of means, but in this fixture, it's idiotic. We've seen instances recently there where I think Tavernier had something thrown at him from the Hibs fans. There was another incident at Ibrox where Engels was hit by something. You know, so these are the kinds of things that the players are constantly being told. You know, the clubs are constantly telling us we're doing all we can to try and cut these incidents down. And it's difficult when it's the supporters. If you're dealing with 55, 60,000 people, you know, it is very, very difficult. But all the more reason why then the players on the field need to show an example. You know, they need to set examples. You can't have that kind of behaviour going on. I know, as I say, in the grand scheme of things, it sounds like sour grapes and stuff, but it's not. I actually heard somebody today saying that it could also have, what if somebody had a allergy to peanuts and that water had contained trace of nuts, which could have set somebody off on something like that. It's just not, it was just ill-advised by the guy. You know what I mean? I don't think that he meant any real harm by it. They scored a goal in the last minute. They were overjoyed with it, but it certainly shouldn't have happened. And as I say, the reason it shouldn't have happened is because of this fixture. And as I say, that's not me saying that it's okay to do it to Motherwell fans or Kilmarnock fans or Aberdeen fans. It's not. But I'm just saying that, it was an example of a player who, amongst the other sets, both sets of players would have had a stern talking to before the game from the police and the match commander to tell them what was on, and what's, by all means, go down to your own supporters and scoot water, celebrate, do whatever you like. But it was just very ill-advised and ill-thought. So listen, it's over to the authorities, Scotty. It's over to them. I'm sure there are rules and regulations for things like that. Personally, as I say, I don't think there was an awful lot in it, to be honest. I didn't even see it because I was already gone by that stage. But listen, whatever they do, it'll be neither here nor there. They will just be delighted that they got the result on Sunday. And I don't think there's really anything too much. Listen, they're not winning anything this season anyway. So whether the guy gets a 2-match ban or a 5-match ban, it's not going to change the situation. He might miss a game or two here and there. Personally speaking, I'll be surprised if there's anything done about it. I will be surprised if there's anything done about it. And I say that for the same reason that as far as I know, there was never any comeback about the glass that was thrown at Joe Hart in the penalty area. There was never anything done about the physio that had his head split going up the tunnel at Ibrox. So I wouldn't be holding my breath on anything happening for a guy that scooted a bit of water at a few people in the main stand. So, but listen, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that. I don't think it's that serious. It was just very ill thought of in this fixture.
He knew what he was doing, and that's my point, ladies and gentlemen, and the guys on the panel as well, is they knew exactly what they were doing. All the players that I mentioned, it's to get a rise at the opposition, and you can look at it either way. But good points all round, it's one of them, and the boy knew what he was doing. He's a bit naive in this fixture, I would say, and as you said as well, it can turn it into a boiling point in seconds, stupid wee incidents like that. So moving on, something that happened long before the game even started was Police Scotland's did they go over the top with the fans outside the stadium and, at the social club, things like that. Lots of stuff came out. There's been statements from the Green Brigade and the boys. And there was also the outspoken academic, Jeanette Finlay, was on Graham Spears's podcast and had a few things to say about it as well. So pretty disgraceful scenes I'm hearing, and I'll just read out a few of the statements of what I've came up with. So the Green Brigade have come up with this: fan repression. Yesterday there was a premeditated attack on football supporters by Police Scotland. We believe their actions were unlawful and we are currently taking legal advice. The actions of the police should serve as a stark warning to all football supporters of Scotland and anyone who values civil liberties. At 10 a.m, the Green Brigade and other Celtic supporters congregated at the Celtic Social Club, which is routine practice. At this time, there was a considerable police presence. At no point was there any attempt from police officers to relay any information about concerns or expectations of how fans should move to the stadium. Similarly, there was no attempt to share information in advance through mutual channels, Celtic Football Club, as is often the case. At 10:45 a.m, we attempted to depart for the stadium. At this point, around 200 people were kettled on the road. We were told that we were being held until all away supporters had entered the stadium and would then be moved along. After 1 hour, the police informed us that we had been detained under Section 60 of the Public Order Act. Now that's very important, which I will speak about later. Section 60 of the Public Order Act. The reason given was that people were concealing their identity, despite the fact that most people were not wearing masks. When this was pointed out, the concern moved to hats, hoods and sunglasses. We offered to remove these items, but this was not accepted. So after that, the following was then expected. There was women, young children, things like that. So in order to leave the police kettle, the following was expected of all individuals, including young children. Submit to police detention, being held by 2 officers by the arms, taken from the kettle and into a further police cordon. Submit to a full body search, including a refusal to privacy for females. Give full personal details, show ID to verify personal details. Have hats, sunglasses, scarves and snoods confiscated. Have all of the above actions filmed, including ID documents and clothing. It goes on and on and on, okay? The boys' statement, very similar, but I think what they touch on is it's not just on Celtic fans. They mention Rangers fans and all football fans. It's a crime against all of us in their statement. I'm sure if you want to find them online, you can go and read them. I'll no bore the arse off you and read it out. But this one here is the outspoken academic Jeanette Finlay. If we take a step back a bit, the Section 60 cannot be used in that way, she said. There were a number of significant problems with how they tried to operate that. For instance, they have a reasonable suspicion that somebody has something, like a weapon or something that can be unlawful to have. You have to have a reasonable suspicion. It cannot be based on how someone is dressed or whether they are part of a group of people who dress in a particular way, or even whether they have been convicted of anything. This legislation does not allow police to do that, but nevertheless, that's what they did. So, Paddy, I've read this further about what she said. And what the Green Brigade said is they were talking about taking snoods off people, taking all these different things off people. Now, as we all know, if you take evidence of people, it needs to be bagged, tagged, and you've given a receipt. So none of this stuff was happening. So everything that they've done, and also I actually watched the kettling of the Rangers fans going into the stadium, and I would say 75% of them easily had their faces covered. Now, this isn't a Celtic Rangers thing, as the boys' statement says. This is on football fans in general, but that's double standards. You can't have 200 fans down the road getting asked to take all these things off, and then the police are just kettling virtually the majority of the Rangers fans in with all their faces covered. It's something that's been going on a while now, and it's something that needs to be dealt with. And I think this is going to be the game that finally does that, because it was a shambles on Sunday, mate.
It was, Scotty, and the one thing that's disappointing for me is there's been very little, if any, comment from the club about what happened. And I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for. They're waiting for Celtic to come out. Like, the guys who were there on Sunday involved in that, they're Celtic supporters. They were heading to the match, rightly or wrongly, irrespective of how they were dressed. I'm sure nobody was bothering about how I was dressed on Sunday. No, I certainly wasn't. You're not considering when you take your hat, you take your scarf, that you're going to be asked to take that off. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people are disappointed with the lack of communication from the club in any way, shape, or form. I'm like you, Scott. I've seen the videos, and what else can you? What other conclusion can you draw from watching those videos? And that one set of supporters seems to have been completely treated completely differently to the other, and that can't be allowed to stand. I don't know what the answer is, Scott. I know, like, as somebody I've been to a few away grounds this season myself, Kilmarnock, Motherwell. And the one thing I will say is, I've noticed myself, it's just the attitude of the police. I've noticed the attitude of the police as an away supporter, and like, fair enough, you stick a Celtic hat and a Celtic scarf on you and a coat and you head off to the match, but underneath that you're a human being. You've got a job, you've got a family, you've got, they just seem to treat. They seem to have this attitude that they just seem to treat every supporter as a hooligan, and it doesn't seem to matter where you come from or what age you are or one thing or another. It just seems to be the fans are treated like second-class citizens, and not that anybody has ever really done anything to me. I'm just talking about the attitude that I see from the police. You know, especially when you're making your way around the perimeter of a stadium to get to the turnstiles and stuff. You know, there's just, you know, I don't like to say they're asking for trouble, but you know, as I say, that's what it looks like to me. There definitely seems to be, you know, an attitude now towards football supporters. And I just wonder, are rugby fans subjected to this when they're going into Murrayfield to watch Scotland? I certainly don't think that the Ireland fans are treated like that when they're going to watch Ireland playing rugby at the Aviva Stadium. You know, so I don't know what it is about the football fans. You know, they definitely have a bee in their bonnet at the minute around football supporters, and that's very, very unfair because, yep, listen, when you look at the size of the crowd in the stadium on Sunday, how many people, what percentage of a crowd were they talking about there, Scotty? You know what I mean? You're talking a very small percentage there of the overall stadium, and I include both sets of fans in that. You know, so it just seems to be a societal problem at the minute. I know Jeanette Findlay has spoken out on the policing of different things. You know, when you think back to a couple of years ago, where in the COVID season, where you know Rangers fans were basically allowed to do what they like and go into Glasgow city centre and cause mayhem.
Yeah.
You know, but yet whenever Celtic fans try to go and celebrate and do something similar, you know, then you run into problems. You know, so and listen, like, you know, as Jeanette said, there's rules and regulations that have to be followed around these things. You know, the police just cannot be allowed to do what they like. You know, if there's a genuine reason for suspecting that somebody may be concealing a weapon or maybe concealing drugs or whatever, or there's a perceived danger or something, you know, the one thing I'll contrast and compare it to, you're all seeing recently the protests all over the country about the conflict going on in the Middle East. So you're seeing protests in support of the people of Gaza, but you're also seeing protests in support of Israel as well. You know, and when I see some of those demonstrations, there are women there involved, particularly when it comes to the Gaza one. There are women there dressed in the full burqa, you know, fully concealing their identity, and they don't seem to be being kettled or whatever, you know. So it does seem to be something to do with they have a bee in their bonnet around football fans. And I don't know what the answer is, Scotty, but I know that the one thing that needs to happen is, you know, Celtic need to come out here and make some kind of a statement or make some kind of an announcement about their own supporters. Like that's us. I would class those guys as the same as us. Those guys were gathering up on Sunday morning to go to see the match, the same as we were, and they were prevented from doing so by the police for what reason? And that's just as Jerry said there. That's exactly how I feel when I'm away at some other stadiums. I feel as though you're just treated as no better than dirt by the police, and we're not dirt. You know, we're football supporters. Yep, we've come out to support our team. We may be wearing a Celtic scarf, we may be wearing a Celtic hat, but as I say, we're decent human beings. We're there to support our team. We're not there to cause any kind of trouble. We've got family with us. We've got children with us. You know what I mean? So I just don't know what the answer to the whole thing is, but the one thing I would say for sure is that Celtic are definitely falling down. I mean, here we are. Tomorrow's Thursday, and there's still been no mention of anything from Celtic about the antics inside the stadium or the police operation outside of it. And I think that's pretty poor from the club, to be honest.
Aye, it's an absolute minefield, Andy. It looks like it's going back to the 80s, mate. I was at the tear gas game at Easter Road. Just loads of nonsense, you know, involving the police back then in the 80s, as you know as well, mate. You know, there's stories coming out that people were kettled for 4, 5, 6 hours, not allowed to eat, not allowed to go to the toilet, not allowed to drink water, things like that, you know, and it's all coming out, all these stories now. It's disgusting what's going on. Like I said, I've watched the Rangers fans go in on camera, and I'm not making it a Celtic Rangers fans. I'm just saying you cannot kettle fans, ask them to take off all this clobber, and then, you know, a few hundred metres up the road, let another bunch of fans in that are basically covered. It's unbelievable, mate.
I'm going to say something, right, and I was going to say it before Paddy brought it up, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way at all, religiously wise, but see if the Celtic fans that were all kettled all turned up with burqas on, what would they do? How would they get round about that situation there? You know, and I'm not saying go and do it, but, you know, they're pulling people up for wearing sunglasses, wearing putting their hood up. It's just an absolute ridiculous situation. They're stuck there for 4 or 5 hours. Ordinary football fans, whether you agree with the GBD or no, is that they're the same as us. They're the same as every other fan that goes to watch their team. And they're getting prevented to do that on suspicion that they might be committing a crime. They're talking about searching for pyro. I don't know about you, but I seen plenty of pyro in the stadium when it was in the away end. So if they're kettling fans and searching, they're picking and choosing who they're searching, because they're certainly no searching the Rangers fans appropriately, because I seen plenty of pyro in that part of the stadium. It's an absolutely ridiculous situation when it comes to Celtic being complicit in it. I don't know what the story is. I know that JP had been in contact with the Celtic fans, obviously the security guy, to find out information about what was happening. I think as it was going on during the game. What was that? Celtic was a sale training gear. Exactly. It's an absolutely ridiculous.
They tell fans to take turbans off and things like that as well. You know that go.
I know.
To the
game. Where does it stop? Where does it stop, mate? It's an absolutely ridiculous situation. I think no matter if you like them or dislike them or hate them or love them, you need to back the GB up here, because they're just. It could be you. It could be you. It could be your Wayne. You're walking along the roadway. You're just getting kettled in amongst.
It's obvious now what's happening. It's obvious. That's the thing.
Yes.
It's in plain sight.
I want to see what the club's going to come out with. I want to see. Obviously, they're going to have to do a full investigation, and it will be interesting to see what they are. I know they put out a short statement, but obviously they're going to need more information before they fully commit on taking them to task about this. But something's certainly got to be done. It's an absolutely ridiculous situation to stop fans going to the game. What that guy, people that have paid season tickets, paid for travel. These are, we all love Celtic, and if you're a season ticket holder, you're obviously now supporting the club. But these guys, they enough a lot for this club. You know, the amount of commitment they put into all the tifos they put out and whatever. And if they have been stopped for getting in because they've been warned that a certain tifo can't be done or a banner, don't take it in. If you can't show it, sing it. If you can't show it as a banner, they can't stop you singing. So sing the words out and everybody join in and get the message out if that's what's required. So if you can't put it in a banner, just sing it.
It's going to be an ongoing issue, this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure we'll touch on it in future podcasts, but it's a very interesting subject to talk about, and I'm sure we haven't heard the end of it. So let's move on. I hope you have got your pens and papers ready, because it's now...
Choose your boys carefully.
So I'm going to finish off with this wee segment for you, ladies and gentlemen. And if you haven't played this game before, choose your boys carefully. I'm going to give the guys 5 right backs that have played for Celtic in no particular order. And after every one, they have to tell me where they want to place them in their 1 to 5. Now, I caught them out last week with the left backs. Poor Paddy has let his countrymen down by picking 2 guys from the north of Ireland as his number 5 left back, his number 5 goalkeeper as well. So I've maybe flung a wee one in there again this evening to see where he puts him, because the way it's gone, he's going to get a lifetime ban from the Stena line. Andy's got a goal pass, so he can put you in the back.
Well, James is saying no cheating. How can I cheat at this?
You can't cheat at this one. Tell him, Michelle. Get him told off. Right, I'll try not be very sneaky tonight, but there might be a couple of wee red herrings in there. Let's see. Might have to catch it. Let's see. So, first up is Chris Morris. Chris Morris. So, get involved in the comments. Where are you putting Chris Morris in your 1 to 5? Paddy?
You're doing it again, Scotty.
No, I don't know how to judge you, by the way. It's just you're just not me for 6 here.
Oh, a lot of 5s already, Paddy. They're helping you. They're helping you.
I'm going to go for number 3, Chris Morris 3.
Oh, he's sitting on the fence today. See, he's worried about getting on that boat. Andy?
I'm going to go with number 4 for Chris Morris.
Number 4. Right. Let's have a look at the comments. Quite a lot of 5s in there.
Aye.
A lot of 4s.
You just don't know what's coming next. That's the problem. Do you know what I mean? So it's really difficult to choose.
Well, I would say number 5's the majority. Must be a lot of youngins in here.
Aye.
Chrissy Morris was very, very good.
Aye.
Plunge 3, love it 5, and our Chris number 4. So next up is, you might be regretting that number 5 that you all just put there. It is Jean-Jo Pierre Dumbe. Get your answer. Number, what are you going for, Patrick?
I'm going to put Jean-Joël Perrier Dumbe at number 5.
Oh, okay. Andrew?
Number 6.
Number 6. I think there was a number 6 in there that I seen actually.
Number 5, mate. Number 5.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree. I think a lot of people are using their 5s for a second time here by the looks of things. James agrees with you there, Andy. Number 6. Somebody's having a wee argument in there. I don't know what all that's about. John Shirley loved him. Number 2.
Yep.
A few number 5s. And Paul Maguire, he's went for him as a sub. So next up, ladies and gentlemen, is very good pundit now, actually. I quite like him. Mark Wilson. Mark Wilson. Get your comments in. Mark Wilson. Where are you putting him, Paddy?
I'm putting Mark Wilson at number 4, Scott.
Oh, number 4. Okay. Andy?
He has to go at number 3.
Number 3. Okay. P. McLaughlin. I think a lot agree with here, Andy. Quite a lot of number 3s. Number 3s. Oh, Robert's putting him in as his number 2.
Robert's gone early.
Okay, he's gone early. But it could be right. Let's see. Next up, your 4th right back this evening is Jackie Mara. So, a dilemma yet again. Jackie McNamara, get your comments in.
Oh, dear.
Paddy, where are you going? Let's have a look. No, a lot of 2s. Oh, a lot of 1s. A lot of 1s here.
I'm going to put Jackie in at number 2, Scotty.
Number 2. Andy?
I'm just trying to read if you're going to fire in my hero in here. And I ain't taking a chance. So as much as I love Jackie Mack, I've only got 1 or 2. He's got to get into number 2, mate, because I'm not taking the chance of missing out on Jesus.
There's a few there. I think I'm going to do. He's over.
So you better not do this week again.
Just said, yeah, dude. Just to save the suspense. Andy, would you like to answer our Matthew here?
Just press the subscribe button on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, you need to go into the YouTube channel, the 4-Leaf Clover. Press subscribe.
4-Leaf Clover podcast, Matthew, and press subscribe, my good man. So the last one for you that I have this evening is
Yes.
of course. I couldn't do that to you, lads.
Oh, don't do that. No, way, Danny. No, don't do that. Excellent. I actually worked out quite well. I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, me too.
So, Paddy, give me your top 5. Go for it.
There you are. Number 1, Danny McGreen.
Yep.
Number 2, Jackie McNamara. Number 3, Chris Morris. Number 4, Mark Wilson. And number 5, John Joel Perrier Doumbé.
Aye, pretty decent. And
I'm happy enough for that, yep.
Aye, for me, Paddy's is the perfect one. I wish I'd went that way. I went Danny McGreen, number 1, Jackie Mack, number 2, Wilson, number 3, Morris, number 4, and Doumbé, number 5. In hindsight, I would swap Morris with Wilson. So Morris would be 3 and Wilson would be 4.
I totally agree with that. I agree with Paddy's one as well, if you look at it. So, well played, lads. That was...
Choose your boys carefully.
Thanks for no doing us up like a kipper there, mate. I appreciate that. Couldn't do that 2 weeks in a row. Couldn't do it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's putting you in. It's putting you in the mood for our last man standing segment that we're going to bring back in pre-season. So that was very popular on a previous podcast that myself and Andy was on. So it's just getting you in the mood for that. It's just getting you a wee appetizer. So just to finish off, ladies and gentlemen, I know we've took a bit of a ripping the past few days off the people from the other side of the city. But at the end of the day, when you look at it, we've won the same amount of trophies in the last 13 years as St Johnstone. Look at the absolute domestic dominance of Celtic. We're going to get another treble this season as well. And I put this on my socials yesterday and my phone has not stopped since. And for me, this just sums them up perfectly. They're just forever accepting mediocrity. This sums them up to a T. They're happy to be in second place. They're delighted with it. And that is where they will stay. Paddy, thank you so much. Andy, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all your comments. Jerry will be back with us on Friday night. He's very busy this evening, finishing off his jobs before Friday. So hopefully
he's at the bingo. He's at the bingo. Don't believe him.
He is in the bingo. I didn't want to grass you in, Jerry. I didn't want to grass you in. So that's us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on Friday night. All the boys will be back 7 o'clock UK time. Thank you so much for joining us. I seen in the comments earlier it's our Michelle's birthday as well. So happy birthday to Michelle. Have a belter. I think she's 45 or 46 or something like that. So
aye, she's no far behind us. Aye. She's trying to make it. She's too young to know who Chris Morris is, but we don't believe you.
She's getting on a bit, so she is. Poor Michelle. That's us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on Friday night. All the best. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.